70% of software engineers report burnout from their work. Now, burnout isn't just being tired or stressed. It's exhaustion caused by prolonged excessive stress. It doesn't take many clicks on YouTube to find video after video of people struggling. If you just search software engineer burnout on YouTube, you just find countless videos of people all talking about the same thing, even to the point where people are leaving the industry because of it. Now, there's no one reason that causes this. It comes from a myriad of different factors, but personal resilience and the ability to deal with stress has a lot of factors that are in your control. So in this video, I'm going to cover how to effectively deal with the pressure of deadlines and high expectations, how to keep up with technologies without getting overwhelmed, and how to improve collaboration and communication in your team, especially when you're either remote or in a high-stress environment. And I'm going to do this with actionable strategies from Dale Carnegie's book that are backed up with a hefty amount of evidence. So I think when we think of burnout, we think of the pressure of deadlines and high expectations, right? I remember this one time when I was probably in the first year of me working as a software engineer, and we use a DevOps agile board, right? So we have a bunch of stories, and then under those stories, we have tasks, and you just assign yourself to the tasks and you work on them until they're complete, and then they move into results. And it must have been around the time where I'd gotten confident enough to complete tasks, but I hadn't had enough experience really working in a software team to understand the pitfalls of coding problems. So in my confidence, I assigned myself to a more than one task and literally took the sprint vertical because I thought I could get them done within a couple of days and unblock things so that other people could work on the tasks that these were blocking. And so I worked on them all really quickly, and I got pull requests up for each of them. And that was all fine until the comments started rolling in on the pull requests, and I ended up actually having to make major changes for each of these tasks, which meant that the tasks that I was then blocking all relied on me, whereas if I'd just taken one and I'd been stuck in that point, then I wouldn't have been blocking all of these simultaneously. And so you might say, oh, well, the lesson here is, okay, just don't multitask. We all know that multitasking is far less efficient, but actually it speaks more to the order in which you do things. Naturally, I wasn't working on any one of these things simultaneously, but what I was doing instead was putting small amounts of time into each task and then swapping between them. And this is what poor time management looks like. And in the book, Carnegie recommends that you don't look at things in terms of he actually advocates for a Kanban-like system that's scoped to a day. So he says, take your day as a bucket of distinct granular tasks and just work on the tasks until completion. You can probably estimate that task 1 is going to take you half a day. And maybe you estimate that task 2 is also going to take you half a day. We know from multitasking and task switching that realistically doing this crazy flipping between multiple tasks isn't a good idea. But it can become quite overwhelming when there will be scenarios where maybe you are assigned to 3, 4, maybe even 5 things at the same time. If you looked at things in terms of a week, where maybe task 3 takes 3/4 of a day and task 4 takes you right up to the end of Wednesday, this is suddenly a lot more overwhelming. But if instead we didn't think about task 3 and 4, because realistically all we care about is what we're up to at the moment, and we just focused on, right, what are we doing today? Task 1 and task 2, and task 3 and 4, they're unprioritized. We're not thinking about those right now. Suddenly your week is a lot less scary looking. And you can do this for your personal life too. So sure you have the overarching structure of the sprint, but actually what you're focusing on and the calendar that you're looking at, and I'd actually recommend switching your calendar down to day mode, not week mode. Just fit in, okay, I'm going to spend this much time. So then if task 1 overruns, okay, cool, task 2 knocks into tomorrow, and you're not suddenly panicking thinking, oh, I need to push task 3 and task 4. You're going to be able to justify this in stand-up, right? Because it's taken longer than you thought it was going to take. And whatever reason has caused that is exactly what you explained. But it's human nature to see this big jumble of deadlines that we've created for ourselves, and that is expressed as stress. And you can do this in your personal life. So I use Google Tasks. Throughout the day, if there's something that needs getting done, I just write it down in the tasks, and I don't assign a date to it. So say I need to buy a tripod and do a food shop, and then while I'm at work I realise I need to make that phone call to that friend that I've forgotten to message. So I just capture them in the unassigned time, and you can order them by date, and it just drops all of your ungrouped ones to the bottom. So what I do is at the end of each day I have a recurring reminder on my phone to prioritise these things. And so I might think, okay, tomorrow's the day that I need to go on Amazon on my lunch break, and I'll schedule it in at, say, midday. And I can message my friend also at midday, so both of these are at 12 o'clock on my to-do list, and it automatically removes them from this section and orders them by time, and also it comes up on my calendar. I get a little reminder when it comes up. And also the food shop, maybe that goes at 4:30 p.m. when I finish work. My unprioritized stuff is gone, and I didn't have to think about it all day. Tomorrow I won't have to think about it until I get the notification, and then I just do it. In this way, I don't have that list of things that just becomes overwhelming in the back of my mind, but just contributes to this growing stress that people just let get on top of them. Scope your problems to the day. Okay, but not all problems can just be neatly packed away and forgotten about, right? To be organized for another time. There are things in life that you're going to worry about. There are deadlines that you don't have the liberty to move around. Well, Carnegie actually has a magic formula for solving what he calls worry situations. These things that are big and looming. One of the things that is big and looming for me is how quickly the industry moves. You probably have a tech stack at work that only moves at the pace that the company is willing to move at. And no company is ever going to be at the cutting edge because new languages are spawning that are more appropriate for your use case every day, but you can't just be constantly changing languages because you wouldn't be able to run a team. So let's try and apply Carnegie's formula to this problem of the constantly moving tech industry, right? So first he says to analyze the situation. Okay, so the reality is that the industry is going to keep moving, and in my day job, I might not be constantly at the cutting edge of that. I may even fall behind industry standards. So the second step is to prepare to accept the worst. So what is the worst in this case? Well, say I lose my job and I'm well behind the industry. Suddenly it's going to be quite hard for me to get a job. How do I prepare to accept that? Well, sure, I won't be able to go for crazy new cutting edge jobs, but I can guarantee that there'll be other companies that were moving at the same pace as my company with exactly the same tech stack. The tech sector is huge. And it's not even like we're limited to just exposure within our own counties. You've got exposure to your nation, and then you've got global exposure. You can work remotely for other countries. That's how digital nomads exist. So actually, worst case scenario, it's not that bad. But I mean, we don't want to accept worst case scenario, do we? So the third step is to calmly work to improve on the worst. So what can we do to offset it to the point that actually it works out to be something that we're happy about? I mean, it's never going to be the best case scenario, because best case scenario, we're constantly working towards being right at the front. Well, that's not possible because you have other priorities. But what if you committed 10 minutes a day to look into what's new in your tech stack? Or before every task that you did, you spent 15 minutes researching what new tools there are out there for solving that? Because once you put that strategy in and you're not completely ahead, not completely behind, suddenly you're somewhere in the middle, and the big problem that you were worried about, it's mitigated. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Analyze the situation, prepare to accept the worst, and calmly work to improve on that worst problem. Right, so the last one was improving collaboration and communication in your team, because I think we all find that quite stressful. A lot of people, there's a stereotype of software engineers struggling to work with people. And it's fair, people are probably the most complicated part about our jobs. And to explain how to deal with this, I'll tell you a story about how I actually had some friction with my team, which normally doesn't come about because I actually tried to prioritize this quite a lot. So a while back, we had this refactoring task where I was super excited to get on it, again, probably overly keen. And I made a bunch of code changes that essentially completely redid that section of the code base. And it was well out of scope of what we wanted. And so when it came to pull requests and I actually showed it to people, they were like, oh, well, no, we can't let this in because it could introduce too much instability and we don't have the time to test it. So I'd spent a week and a half working on this project that I was super proud of, and I just had to let it go, which at the time I probably did look myself in the mirror and be like, yeah, you know what, it's not that big a deal, but I did hold on to it. And then later on, when we encountered issues that refactor would have helped with, it caused friction between me and my colleagues because I made it known that actually if we'd used my refactor, then this wouldn't be a problem. But if anything, it was just petty. I was holding on to the past pointlessly. What was done, and at the time it was the right decision. It's just that I still had this emotional attachment that was then actually making my work environment less nice for not only me, but the people I work with. Because who wants to deal with the guy that wants to say I told you so, even though he's wrong? And people get even more extreme versions of this, where they get caught up on things that happened a long time ago, and you get that moment where you have that flashback to that thing that you said or did that you regret. It's human, but it's not helpful for us now. So when you're talking and working, make the assessment before you say or do something. Am I doing this because of something happened in the past, or because of what's going on now? Have that separation, because yes, we should learn from what's happened in the past, but we shouldn't let it influence our emotions now. We should use it logically to inform what we're going to do. Memories aren't just logic, they have emotion attached. If there's certain things that are really winding you up, write them down and just think logically through it. Okay, what happened there? Why was I annoyed? Okay, should I be annoyed about it now? Probably not. And it's that self-control that's really gonna influence your stress levels, right? Because understanding that emotion and then logically working through it, you're not just bottling it up, you're letting it go. Now, all of these work really nicely, but we're ignoring the elephant in the room, which is a lot of your capacity to deal with stress is your cortisol regulation, the hormone that actually drives that feeling. And your cortisol regulation is highly dependent on lifestyle factors, your fitness and your sleep are the two big ones. So if you want more information about that, if you click this video here, I walk you through how to go from out of shape to being in shape. This will supercharge all of the steps I had in this video, because a combination of a good physical well-being and a good mental attitude towards stress is going to help you fight off burnout. So I hope that video helps. Cheers.